Anyway.
Okay.
Oh, hang on.
Let's just see if okay. So welcome to week 6 already. We missed 3 weeks because they got deleted, but I started over by myself here, and so we're on the 3rd week, but it's actually the 6th week I've been doing these free Zoom meetings. And I'm just so excited because I get lots of good feedback, and even though I say I babble on, I guess people are still here listening, so that's really nice. Um, what I'm going to do, I look like I'm probably just one of the participants, so I must have signed in wrong on this meeting, but we'll go ahead and I'm recording it. I wanted to talk a little bit about my Facebook site, Sacred Spaces, Sacred Wisdom, for a minute. And Leslie Fritz is nice enough to be my administrator. There she is up in the corner. And I thank her so much because that's a whole new avenue for me to be on other than on a personal page, really. So she's helping me learn the ropes on that. And we're trying to get things organized as we grew much faster than I was anticipating. And so it began to get a little bit out of control. And what I felt like is that the message of sacred spaces was getting lost among a whole lot of other posts about things that were not relevant. And okay, I'm going to ask Bonnie. There we go. And so I wanted to get us back on track and be able to stay within the realm of the sacred spaces, and what the intent for that site is really to pass on this work from the book and to reach out to other people. And then eventually, as we get better and better at it, is to go ahead and start posting more things about the actual training that works with sacred spaces. And part of the problem on the site, and I appreciate everyone's enthusiasm on there that was posting, is they were trying to be helpful, and they would suggest different training techniques with horses to do on certain situations. And a lot of those would be in conflict with what we're trying to do with the energy work, and it would confuse the horse if you go between, say, a really dominance-based training method and then switch over and try to get your connection and all this through the energetic work. And so just to keep things clean and nice, I just want to mute a lot of those comments and just tell people that if that's what you want, there's lots of sites you can go to, and there's lots of other people out there doing training methods, and you're more than welcome to go to those sites, and most people know where those are and who those people are and who their favorite people are. And please just go there. But if you want information on a particular training technique, let's say just like a lot of people were talking about clicker training, and I would appreciate if maybe you can put it in a question on the Facebook site as far as what are your thoughts about clicker training, and can you explain what that is and how it works and whether or not you agree with it. And I'll be happy to go into that in some detail at some point along the way. But I just want to say that there's things, again, that if I'm doing energy work, I'm not going to do clicker training with a horse, because those are two entirely different things that I'm trying to accomplish through each method. So in my work, the very first thing I want people to do is understand how to gain that connection with their horse. And before you can go and do all these different training techniques, whatever you want to decide you're going to do, none of them are going to work if you don't have the connection. Because without connection, you cannot communicate. And we can see this happen in our own lives where, there's a lot of times, I always think of the husbands who have that place in their brain where they can just, like not hear you at all, even though you're talking right at them. And it's the same way if you don't have the connection, your horse can't hear you. And so all of the efforts that you do as far as training and trying to communicate with the horse through your aids are going to be lost somewhere, or they're going to be heard intermittently. And so that's why my focus at this very beginning is that we need to get connection. and we need to get it strong, and we need to know how to get it back if we lose it. And so that is really why I haven't gone into a whole lot of detail yet on different training methods that I use. But they will be down the pike at some point as we get more into this work. And also, if you come to my clinics or work with me one-on-one, you're going to get a chance to watch how I do incorporate my training of the horse using the energy. And so that's going to be down the way here. One of the other things that I wanted to bring up, because this came up also on the Facebook site, and somebody had mentioned something about, well, I call your, they didn't say this specifically, but they were calling the work that I do woo woo or magic or something. And I feel like it's a way to, for other people, not necessarily the people on this site, but for other people over the years to use terms like that for me as a way to discredit the work that I do, discredit the science that I'm working within. And so I'm always, whenever I hear a word like you do voodoo or you do woo woo or you do magic, it triggers something in me to say, you know what, let's stop doing that, because everything we do that lies in those areas of woo-woo are actual natural abilities that we as humans have, but most of us have lost over time. So I just want us to start going, hey, we're doing really what nature intended us to do when we start doing this work and getting in touch with our emotions and our thoughts and our how our body works and how we can change our physiology. Those are all natural things that we have available to us to help us with our horses and to help us with ourselves. And so all of this technology that comes up that tries to take us in and say, you need this technology to experience that, or you need this technology to sense that, it's not true. Because we would never have thought of that technology if we had not somewhere in our brain know that that ability exists in us already. And yes, sometimes technology can enhance our abilities. And this takes me to this place when I was really beginning to think about doing this work. And I kept thinking that I needed credibility before I would be out there doing this. And I needed some kind of scientific instrument from which to be able to hook people up to while they were working with their horses and have them see in real time what was actually going on internally in them, in their brain, in their heart, or in their breathing. And so I spent years thinking about what kind of technology could I use. And I finally came across these two brilliant neuroscientists, and they were women. And I called them up and I said, could I come to your office and talk to you about the work I'm doing? And maybe you two could give me some suggestions on how I could incorporate some technology into this work I'm doing. And so I'm thinking, great, here are these two neuroscientists that are leaders in their field. They're known throughout the world, and they are going to have the answer for me. And they're going to know exactly what technology, because they're up on everything that's the most recent uh, and more sophisticated instruments out there, and they'll tell me. And so I go and meet with them, and I sit with them, and oh, it was just amazing to go into their office, because it was like surround sound with these gigantic computer screens, and they could hook people up and watch brain activity in real time, and they could do all these really fascinating things through neurofeedback and different things like that. And I'm like, oh, this is heaven for a nerdy person like me. And I sit down and I tell them what I'm doing and about the connection pieces and how I'm looking at doing that. And they sat there for a minute, and what they told me was, we're not going to tell you any technology to use. And I went, oh, well, like, really? I came here because I thought you guys would support me. And they go, we support you 100%. We totally understand what you're doing and that it's going to work, but we would discourage you from ever using technology to get there. And I went away and I was a bit discouraged about it because I thought, "What why would they tell me that?" And I thought I was kind of like, "Now I'm starting over again, and what am I gonna do? And how am I gonna convince people that this works if they can't see it through some kind of machine?" And what I was failing to know or grasp at that time was how profound what they told me was, and that they were actually telling me, "You can already do it. The people you have already can do it. You teach them how to do it themselves and to sense it themselves and to not rely on technology to give them an answer." And I just found that, after I got over the disappointment of it, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, these women are brilliant." And that is exactly what we need to do in this world now, is to not rely on technology as heavily as we do for sensing who we are and what we're capable of doing. And it's great sometimes, and I've talked about the M wave in my book to monitor your heart waves, and it's fabulous to play with that and to get ideas. But what I want everyone to do is to go, yes, this machine is giving me feedback in real time of where I'm at. But how do I feel? How do I feel at any moment? Okay. And that was the big key. And I'm going to ask anybody, if you're not muted, just double check here that you're muted still. So anyway, that was my journey, and I spent a lot of time even after that and thinking about the technology and wow, how would I get credibility? But our greatest our neurobiofeedback machine is sitting right out in our pasture, and we give it a lot of hay every day, and we feed it, we feed it, and we give it water, and it actually moves around and interacts with us in real time. Absolutely, Joanne. And that when I realized that, and it's like, okay, we have something that works faster and in a more beautiful and simplistic way than if I had to read out any kind of feedback from that I would get from any machine, and that would take a lot of interpretation, and it would be a little bit difficult. Our horses can give us that information about where we're at, what we're thinking, what we're feeling, everything that horse can give us instantaneously. And why would we search for something better than what nature gave us? And so that's why I'm so excited as I began to do this work, and I would get to the place where I'm telling people when they're doing this work, you are going to observe this horse in ways you've never observed it before. You're going to notice every single little minute movement in that horse because every single thing there means something. And when you begin to communicate that way, that horse is telling you so much in its body. And pretty soon, when you start to pay attention in that way, is when I believe we begin to get into that place where we call it magic, because we begin to anticipate things or feel things before we actually see them manifest in a physical way. And I can tell you from doing this work, I did used to be able to notice changes in the energy in a horse, and I would watch someone ride, and then I would see the physical change, and I would comment on that. And now when I look at him, I can actually see when the energy is changed and when it's going in a particular direction. And I can tell that person without any physical thing. I said, your energy is being projected too much backwards instead of forwards, for example. And so next time in your visual thing, I could feel the horse sucking back before he actually sucked back in his body. And I said, all you have to do now is just focus your energy forward and go forward with that energy. And so it's all getting into a very much of a feeling place. And they're like, wow, how did you know I was sucking back before I actually was? And so this is where, as we do this, we're becoming these fine-tuned machines that will be able to far surpass any kind of technology that we can devise. because that technology can't do something we can, and that's feel and anticipate. And so that is my big, I guess, soapbox a little bit about technology. I love it, but I also don't love it so much sometimes. So that's that's my thing on that. And again, please, if you're on the site, you don't want to see my head explode by calling it woo woo. And I think it's cute because I've been called that all the time, Dr. Bombay. You got the voodoo. My ex-husband used to say you have the voodoo. And yes, it's all done in fun, but sometimes it gets to a place where you're trying to get out to a larger group of people and bring something that's very helpful to the general public. And so I think in that way, it's like I want to kind of discard that name or that moniker that they've given onto this so that it gains the credibility it deserves. And there's lots of people doing this work and there's lots of people dedicated to it. And so pretty soon I think it's going to be where it's accepted as real science, even though it's still in that kind of fuzzy place in a lot of people's minds. But I'm hoping that they're going to see, yes, it is real science. And I have to say, being on my Facebook group and watching people's comments come in and watching what they post and knowing I just gave you a few little things to do and here's what you did with that and you had these amazing experiences. And if it wasn't science-based, you wouldn't see as many people having the same type of experiences with their horse as you do. Okay, because I can tell them very specific things to do, and then they go and do those things. Okay, so um, I wanted to talk about, just to remind you all too, in this same place of the energy and the science and all that, and how we had these brilliant scientists through the ages who knew that there was more to life and more to information gathering than just the physical. And those were people like Tesla and Einstein. And you can, if you want to research those people, you can go and see how they talked about being in altered states of mind, like what we're talking about in here. And in those altered states of mind, they were able to obtain information that was not accessible to most people. And they would talk about being in states of mind where they were in somewhat of a dream state or meditative state, and they received information, or things became very clear in those states when they were meditating or sleeping or whatever they wanted to call it. And essentially, everything that we're doing as far as the breathing that I've talked about before and the paying attention to our brain waves and slowing those down, all we're doing is creating a different state of consciousness. We're going from one state of consciousness to another. And there's states of consciousness that are more conducive to us being able to access intuition. And I know Gail and I talked about this week about what is the sensation you get when you get in certain brainwave states. And Gail does some animal communication. And we were talking about she feels it in one part of her body. I feel it in a different part of my body. I feel congestion in my head area when I feel like I'm going into that slower brainwave state and that changing my state of consciousness. And she feels it in a much different way. Okay. And so we just start to think about the feeling we get. Like as we slow down, start to think about that feeling in your body when you slow your breathing, when your brain starts slowing down and you don't have as many thoughts, and when you create a positive emotion. And really pay attention to how you feel, because when you can really get to a point where, okay, this is how I feel when I'm there, you can just in your mind start to go, I want to be in that brainwave, heartwave state, and you can just think about putting that feeling in your body, and the rest of everything else will go with it, and you'll be there instantaneously. So it doesn't take a whole lot of work. And I try to help people with that part. It's like somebody asked last week about how does somebody how do you steal? It wasn't steal an emotion. How do you um, hook on with somebody else's emotion? Because I was talking about a place where if somebody wasn't capable of establishing a particular emotion, they didn't know how to do it, that if they told me what it was they wanted, I would go ahead and put that in my body and put it in the way I feel and the way I think and my emotion. And I would hold that. And then pretty soon they would entrain or copy to that, and they would get a chance to feel that same emotion. And so this is essentially the same thing we're doing with our horses. We're going to put ourselves in certain states of mind and body and hold them steadily, and then have our horses go ahead and copy that. Okay.
I will. I just was.
I'm gonna do mute Julie. I'll get this Zoom down one of these days, I promise. So, so last week, I guess the last 2 weeks, I've kind of talked a lot about breath work as far as that helping us slow down. It's a very simple technique to really help us quickly go from one state of consciousness to another and actually slow down and relax and all that. And it's one of the easiest things we do. And there were just two other notes I wanted to make about that, because I had a question last week from someone, and they were talking about, well, if I breathe in through my nose and exhale through my mouth, and I couldn't really hear them because they had a bad connection on their end, but I want to clarify that in case anybody was listening to that place. When we are mouth breathers, it's not a healthy way to breathe. It's healthier for us to breathe through our nose and exhale, both inhale and exhale out through our nose. Okay. And not just for our health, but as I'm thinking about, do we want our horse to relax? If we breathe in and out through our nose, we're signaling to the horse relaxation. If we mouth breathe, inhale or exhale through our mouth, we're signaling to the horse that that somewhere there's stress. So I just want to clarify that point. Just make sure you're breathing in and out through your nose, and then go ahead and continue to practice those things about checking your respiration rate and just asking it to slow down and just being very conscious of your breathing. And someone else last week actually made a comment too about that their instructors use breath work a lot in riding and training. And I absolutely use breath work for many things that I do with a horse. And I'll give you a couple examples here. And if I have a horse on a lunge line and the horse is going faster than I want, I will slow my breathing even more and be conscious. And then if I want the horse to go ahead and stop and halt, I will take a big deep breath in, and I'll let it out very slowly. If I want the horse to stop slowly, I'm going to let my breath out slowly. So I'm going to go, okay, I'm thinking about, I want this horse to stop here in just another half a circle. And I go, breathe in through my nose, and then breathe out very slowly. And you can watch the horse just come down and stop. Most of the time, it'll do it the first time, and you're like, okay, that was interesting. So that's another cue you have, rather than pulling on the reins or doing anything. You can work on building in that consistency in your breath work so that it means something to the horse when you use it. And the same thing is, let's say people were riding a reining horse, and in a reining stop, you don't want the horse to stop abruptly. You want it to go ahead and sit down in the ground and then just go forward. Okay, but it's never stopping. It's all, even the stop is a forward movement in a reining horse, so they're still going forward with their front legs. So if I want to help someone and they're not getting the right type of stop in their reining horse, I'm going to say, okay, let's use breath work to help that horse understand how quickly it's supposed to stop. Okay. So if I want him to stop slowly like that, I'll take the breath in, and then all the way along that sliding stop, I'm going to be letting air out slowly. Okay. Now, on the other hand, if I wanted that horse to stop abruptly, I'm going to send my breath down abruptly. Okay. And so if you start being conscious of that, like how rapidly do I want the horse to do this transition? Okay. And then playing with your breath in that, whether it's on the ground or in the saddle, and just take that breath work to those other places. Okay, so I'm going to go over several different things tonight that had come up as questions last week in the comments, and then this week I'll just kind of answer some of those and then maybe go into a few other things. So one of the other comments I got was on meditation, and we all know we're seeing the explosion, which is great, of people using meditation with their horses, either sitting in meditative state with their horse or practicing it on the side. And I love that. I've never been good. I've tried meditation sitting there and doing nothing. And I've always found that for me, I like to have a purpose for my meditation instead of no thoughts, that I will actually have a plan. And I talk about it in my book about productive contemplation, and actually I'm doing a story during my meditation so that my mind becomes focused on one thing. Okay, and this is a facet of meditation, but I find that if you practice this, you're going to be able to use it when you're riding and when you're doing other things with your horse. So most of us don't want to just sit there every day and just be meditative with our horse and have our horses relax, which is great, but I want us to be able to ride and have our horses stay relaxed, and do groundwork and have our horses stay relaxed, and for us to have our eyes open and be interactive in that quiet place of meditation. And so what I do with mine is, like any meditation, is merely a change in your state of consciousness. You're going from beta brainwaves, slowing them down to alpha, possibly slowing them down to theta. Okay. And so all you're going to do is, once you get used to being able to do meditation, maybe just sitting with your eyes closed, you're going to start doing meditation with your eyes open. And you're going to be running a story in your mind. And you're going to be thinking about staying in that slower brainwave and staying on task, on focus on one storyline, and staying in that place. And you're going to find, if you start practicing that, you're going to be able to incorporate that into your writing or your groundwork, and you're going to be running a little bit of a movie ahead of whatever you want to do with your horse. And he's going to be starting to pick up, like, oh, okay, now you're doing this, now you're doing that, now you're doing this. And you'll see that it works beautifully. Once your horse understands it, those pictures you're making in your mind mean something to them. They're not just a jumbled mess of a whole lot of different things. Okay. So what I'm wanting people to do is, through that waking meditation and thinking about a story, is that you're beginning to train your brain to stay on task, to stay focused on one thing. And it can be moving in real time, that one thing. It's like, okay, I'm going to go saddle my horse, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that. And I'm making pictures the whole time of everything, and I'm not thinking of other things. Okay. And so this is sort of like regular meditation, in the respect that when you're going through that process of making this little movie in real time of, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, that you notice any time that you get off that train of thought, okay, and go into thinking about something else. So you're just, again, paying attention, just like if you were doing regular meditation and you're trying to pay attention to your thoughts that come in and then let them go. The same kind of thing is going to happen, except for you're actually moving your body and you're actually keeping your eyes open. And so this is a more advanced place of doing meditation. And what you'll find is when you can get there, you can change your state of consciousness at any time you want. Okay. And this is where it gets, I wanted to kind of go into a little bit more about, we're not going to just be using all of this energy work to connect with our horses. I want to give you some things to think about in the future of where we're going to go with a lot of this work and what you're going to be able to experience so that you can go, well, I'm done with Susie because she did the connection piece and now I can go off and I'm going to look for these other things to do. I'm going to say this connection piece is this much of what I do. Okay. But it's the most critical piece of what I do. Okay. So just going to give you something to look forward to in the future, because I find that taking this application of being able to go between different brainwave states and different states of consciousness is so useful for us when we're riding and when we're training a horse. And so, for example, let's say I'm doing a dressage pattern, and within that dressage pattern, you have to have the horse go from very animated movements to very slow and relaxed movements. And they have to happen fairly quickly within that pattern. So let's say you're going and you're doing an extended trot, and then you have to come down and you've got to slow down and do maybe some other transition to a slower trot, and then you've got to do a walk. And then, so all of these things require the horse to do something different. Okay. And so I use these states of consciousness and this energy levels in me, and I play with that in real time as I'm going through the writing. It's like, okay, now I need more energy and I need to bring this up and I need to do a different picture for the horse to respond differently. And now I've got to be able to bring it down because I've got to do a extended walk long and low across the arena and have the horse stay relaxed. And what you see a lot of times is that people can't make that transition in their own brain as riders. And so what happens is they get excited doing one movement, and then when they go to make that transition, they can't switch to the other type of energy that the horse needs to support its through that other slower movement that it's required to do. And so the horse is jiggy or something like that. So if you can start to begin to practice moving through these different energy levels in real time and teaching your horse to respond, and you can just play with this when you're riding. You can go, okay, now I'm going to bring up my energy a little bit. I'm going to project it forward more from my solar plexus area, and we're going to go out boldly, and now I'm going to suck my energy in and we're going to do a slower movement. Okay, so you're always playing with this energy. And I love it because if I'm doing a riding clinic, I can really help people understand how this all works, and when they can get ideas of how to project their energy, how to bring it in, how to expand it, how to support that horse in all of the different movements through your energy, rather than first relying on some type of aid to do it. And so it's really, really fun when the horse starts going, wow, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. And a lot of times too, I'll use the energy as a reward for the horse. And I think somebody maybe on the Facebook side had talked about using energy in different ways like this, but I will start to introduce my horse to the concept that if you do what I asked and you did it really well, I'm going to give you a burst of something really positive that you like. Okay, so I will, instead of petting the horse or saying good boy, because I learned that if I said good boy or good girl to the horse, they usually stop because they were waiting for me to like pet them or something. So I had to stop using my voice to say good boy. So I will ride along, and I'm always riding in a story and talking to that horse, like, okay, now we're going here and now we're going to do this. Good, good. And so I'll put this burst of like, yes, that's what I wanted. And pretty soon the horse starts seeking out those little bursts that you do when they do something right, and they go, oh, good, I did it right. Because it feels good to their body when you do that for them. And you reward them through this energy that you produce. And they go, oh, that felt so good. Okay. And the same thing, if they're not doing what you want, I'll go, and I'll suck my energy in and stop it for a minute. And they don't like that. And they go, "Ooh, I better pay attention." And then when they do, I just go, "No, here it is." So I'm always showing them in my body, "Here's what I want." And when it's what I want, my energy is soft and it's forgiving and it's like comforting to them. And when they do something I don't quite want, I just stop my energy and say, no. And then I go back to that. Okay. So that you can start playing with some of these different things. And, if you're at that level where you want to kind of play with a lot of this energy and it really is a whole lot of fun to do that work. So, um, I think this gets back one other question I had last week or the week before was this idea of intentions versus a goal. And I've worked with some people this week by phone and it seems to be something that comes up a lot and I just want to make sure I clarify what that is so everybody understands the difference. And I think of us as human beings, we're so goal oriented. And that's what we've been taught throughout our life is that as human beings, we create a goal and then we strive and we do all these things that are hard to achieve our goal. And you're always working hard to achieve your goal. And horses don't much care for goals, I can tell you because the people that I've worked with sports psychology and they go, "Yes, but you don't understand, Susie. I need to win or I need him to do this." And think about your body when you say, "I need to have this happen," or "I need to do this." You tense up in your body, and your horse can absolutely feel that, and they don't like it. And so usually what they'll do is protest in some way. Well, I'm just going to be pissy at the show then because you're all tense here and you're not nice like you are at home. And so you get these horses that are starting to really hate to go to shows because of the level of tension that they're under from their rider who may be thinking they're doing the right thing because they're putting on their game face and they're out there and they're like serious and they're you know we've been told those are the people who win. I can tell you they're not the people who win. They're the people who have a meltdown at the show. They're the people whose horses have a meltdown at the show. And the same is true anytime in any situation where we're going through and we're saying, yes, but my horse has to do that. You don't understand. He has to do that. I'm like, no, why? Why? And you're more likely to get him to do it if you can soften your energy and if you have an intention of what you want and not the strict rules that govern a goal. And I think for a lot of people they tell me, "Yes, but I'm an A-type person. You don't realize I can't do that." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, I'm an A-type person too." And it's how we approach our goals. And I can tell you, it's some people don't think I'm very serious or like, oh, you're just too quiet or whatever. No, I've learned that there's nothing I need to do to achieve a goal other than have it in my mind and know that there will be steps that I take to get there and that I'm not going to try to do it in one gigantic chunk, that I'm going to figure out how to do each little step of that goal one at a time until I get it perfected. And then I'll go and add another one. And the whole time, my intention is to just stay relaxed in that goal. And it works. I mean, it doesn't seem it seems counterintuitive because of how we've been taught in our society about who who is successful and who's not. And I really think that now as things are changing that we can maybe rethink what does success mean and how do we how do we feel? Is success okay if we feel awful when we're done or during the process of it? Or are we successful when we live the way we want to live and stay relaxed and happy? And I know it's bothered people before the fact that they don't think I'm driven enough. And it's like, no, it's just a different kind of drive. I just have a quiet drive and I have a soft drive. And I know based on the past that I will get achieve what I want if I have a plan and I don't try to do it all at once. And so I think for our horses, a lot of people get into the thing like, well, that's that whole movement. I need them to do that whole movement. Well, and I talked about this a little bit before. It's like that movement that you're trying to achieve is a whole bunch of little movements. It's a whole bunch of little things before you make it all one. And you have to take it and break it down into each little piece so the horse understands what each little piece is and feels comfortable doing it. Because I've been to a couple clinics where somebody decided, well, here's all these horses. And first of all, the horses were very tense from being at the clinic in a new situation. And so there was no time spent actually doing any connection work so the horses could actually hear the riders. It was just a whole bunch of people in there and chaos, kind of and so, here, okay, now we're going to do a side pass or a leg yield to the wall. And it was just a whole lot of forcing the horses. They couldn't hear the riders because first there was no connection. And then she was trying to teach these people how to do a movement that was a whole lot of little components to it. That most of these horses didn't even have the first little piece of that movement down, much less being able to put all of those pieces together to get a leg yield or a side pass. And so all you could see were horses getting frustrated, riders getting frustrated, people doing more force, people trying to force the horse into it. And what my rule is when I don't have very many rules, but here's one rule that I have is that if I get to the feeling like I'm trying to force something with my horse, I stop because that's an indication that somewhere I didn't explain one of the pieces of that movement to them sufficiently, or they're incapable of doing it yet, or they don't understand it yet. And so then that's on me to go ahead and break it back down and take it into the pieces and say, here's what I need you to do. For example, most movements have a bend associated with them. I'll make sure the horse understands. When I bend your head here, here. I don't bend a horse a lot. I'll just bend him just a little bit. Do you understand that? Is it soft? Okay. And then what about your feet? Do you know how to move your shoulders over? Maybe that's part of the movement. If they're stuck in their shoulders or they have a block there of some type, they're not going to be able to do that whole movement. So I'll break it down and go look at where is that block in the shoulders? What is that about? Is it physical? Is it mental? Is it emotional? And I'll work on getting that till it's soft. And then let's say the middle part of the horse. Is there something that's blocking him being able to do it? I'll do that same process and check until I've gone through everything. And if you break it down like that, and go, okay, I'm just going to move your shoulders over. Do you understand that? Oh, you do. Okay. So now can we do the bend and your shoulders? Yes. Now we can do those two together. So do you see it's really about us paying attention. And when we get that feeling of it's too hard, we stop and we help our horses and we don't keep trying to force it to happen. Because you can often force it to happen, but it's going to look pretty ugly. And the horse is not going to be happy. And part of this, I think is really fun that I never really thought about that, but I had trained my horses kind of at the different pieces of a movement. And I think I've told this story before that one time I was at a dressage clinic and I'm riding along and um, my instructor, she says, come down the quarter line at a canter and do a half pass to the right. Okay. So I'm like, okay, because I'm the good student. It's like, okay, okay. And I know what that feels like. And so I'm going down there. He had never done it before. And I come down and I know, well, I show him what the bend is. I show him where his shoulders need to be. I show him where his hips need to be. I put my weight in the right spot. And all of a sudden he's doing this perfect canter half pass over to the wall. And then I stop. I just dead stop there in the middle of the movement. And she goes, what are you doing? And I said, well, I don't do a half pass, canter half pass. And she goes, well, it sure looked like you were until you decided you weren't or you couldn't do it. And this is the key to all of this is the fact that you can do all these different movements because they're all components of something else. And if you get those little pieces together, you'll be able to do the big piece and put it together. And you'll be able to put all those little pieces together in different ways. And the horse understands it. And the horse is soft in that. And so, a lot of times trainers try to complicate a lot of things. And if we go back and say, okay, we're going to just explain this in a different way to the horse and make sure he understands each piece, he pretty much goes, oh, okay, I get that. I can bend like that. Oh, I could go that direction. Yes, thank you. Okay, now you can go there. Oh, gee, we had that new movement. And it was just easy. And so I just want people to think like we get as humans into like that whole end goal, like this is what it has to look like in the end. And no, it's little tiny successes along the way. And the successes are when we can do that with just no tension and feeling like it's smooth and the horse is happy. And so that's my goal as far as training. Um, so I think tonight I made a few notes on my other computer here that I'm looking at, and I usually try to do these with no notes and just kind of flow with the talking and bringing up different things. We are at 6:18. I was thinking of going about an hour tonight because I didn't have a whole lot of time this week with all the things that were going on to prepare a whole lot of things. But I want to also talk about in the future some of the things that I'm considering doing. I've got a lot of people interested in doing live classes based on my book or live classes in general. So I'll be thinking of some different topics for those. And one of those was that I know that a lot of people are very interested in the trauma piece of all of this work and how that works in with the energy and how we help horses and people that have that and that are creating blocks in their riding or their interaction with their horse. And I think that's a really critical topic that should be addressed and that we need to have resources for people to go to and ways to help to fix those problems. And I have a friend of mine who I've worked with before, and she is a therapist, but she also goes into a lot of different alternative modalities. And we're talking about doing something together as far as maybe a three-part uh, podcast that would be a paid podcast because she's a brilliant person and I definitely want her to get paid for the time and the knowledge that she can share with all of us. And I think a lot of it will translate to not only us, but our horses. And so we'll probably do that together and then have that available at some point here in the future. I would really like to have um, her do that with me because I think, again, that's invaluable for all of us, including me, to have somebody do the human part because I feel like I'm very comfortable within the horse trauma pieces and all of that, and maybe not quite as much in the human piece. I'm not a licensed psychotherapist or anything like that, so I don't want to get into that area, and I don't want to go there and be practicing outside my scope of expertise here. And so it would be great to have her come on board sometimes and be available to help us all and give us resources if we do have some more severe issues that we could go in and she can help us find the people that are really good at different modalities. But she really will be invaluable in this, helping with a lot of the brain information, probably explains it a little bit better than I do, because she works in that realm a lot more than I do, and I have pretty general knowledge. I think I know more writing it on paper, but not as explaining it to people. So that'll be a great resource if we can get her on board to do those classes. And I will. I'm working on my website right now to get that back up, and I mentioned to people too, because there were a lot of people that were a little bit mad about the Facebook site getting shut down as far as their ability to refer to other practitioners or spread information about different things. And what I want for the website is just I'll have a resource section in that of people that I would recommend that people go to, if they want more information on a particular topic that I'm not necessarily well versed in, and they can go on that site and find different resources and things to do on there. And especially like probably things like nutrition and body work and different things like that that I don't have time to get into a lot of times in my clinics. I'll do rudimentary pieces of those things, but I will often recommend people to go to somebody if I see something that I can't resolve with the horse, and I want to have them be able to go to a resource that somebody that can help them, whether it's a Masterson method person or some other kind of emotional trauma piece that, let's say, I'm not in the area or I can't get to, because I think we need to build up this community of people that are doing like work so that I can't be everywhere at one time and I can only help so many people. And then if we have this group of resources for people to go to and we're all on the same wavelength essentially, and they can go ahead and find a person in their area that can help them. And that will be great. Because I'm not yet set up where I can start to do any kind of certification program or anything in the work that I do. I think I can't formulate that in my mind quite yet. Maybe somewhere down in the future I will be able to do that, but I haven't thought of it that far into the future of how I would actually do something like that. And there are programs already out there that people are doing pieces of this work that I do. And so it would be good to go get well versed in some of those and then come and maybe work with me one-on-one and get some other viewpoints on it. So those are the things that I'm thinking of, and I appreciate anybody that wants to. You can email me at scienceandspiritofhorses@gmail and give me your suggestions on things that you might want to see happen. And I just want everybody to be excited about where this energy work goes past when we get our really good connections with our horses, that, oh my gosh, you're going to enter places you never even dreamed were possible. And you thought only certain people were ever able to do that. And you're going to find that it's not as mystical or magical of a place as some people might want you to think, and that all of us can do it if we have our mindset and if we practice all these principles, that we can all do this. And I'm finding such great joy in watching the comments on my Facebook group, because like I said, I haven't given people a whole lot of this information, and they're already having these major transformations in their relationship with their horses and with their families. And it just is heartwarming, and it makes it worth it for me to have gone through all the things that I did as far as being discredited and made fun of all through the years. And now I'm finally getting to see it before I leave this earth, that a lot of the things that I thought about and wanted to get out there are actually starting to find their way to the right people and the right places, and are really transforming this horse world. And I think there's other people out there doing this work. Like I said, there's other people, and it's this group of all of us doing this work that's going to make the difference and going to make the shift in how we treat our horses and how we treat each other and all that. So that is my evening presentation today, and I hope next week I'll have a little more time to put something more structured together for you all. But I didn't want to just leave you hanging this week, and I like to check in. And if you put anything in the comments tonight, I will look through them for next week, and then I can go ahead and probably answer some of those things that may have come up that are questions, like I did last time. And I just went through the comments and pulled out the things that people were asking me for help with or clarification. Oh, it seems like there was one other clarification. Hold on, let me look and see if I can find it. Somebody asked. Oh, this was, and I'm just going to go quick on this one because there was someone that asked last week about the gut brain versus the heart brain and what do those look like, and they were kind of confused on that. And so I want to just clarify that when I say the gut brain or the heart brain, they are one of our three brains, is that they are brains not in the sense of being like the one in our head, like an organ, especially our gut brain. They are brains in the sense that they have a separate nervous system that receives information from the environment, sensory information, and processes it, and then sends that information onto our brain for further analysis. So, for example, our gut brain, as I talk about that, that's the brain that is going to help you determine, is something safe or is it something dangerous? Okay, it's a very primitive nervous system. It's only here to keep you alive. So when you pay attention to your gut brain and what it's saying is, I've seen a lot of people this week going, oh gosh, Leslie, I think you were the one that said about your gut. It was beautiful. Like I listened to my gut and I went out and checked my horse. Oh my gosh, and so it's that thing that you just feel something different, and your body is speaking to you, but a lot of people haven't listened for so long that they just don't notice that they're getting information from some other place. And so that's where like the gut brain, oh, okay, I should probably go check my horse. Oh, and Leslie found out. Please read her story on the Facebook site because it's just amazing. Um, so in that way, there we go. Your gut brain is just giving you information. Same with your heart. Your heart will feel the emotions of someone else or something else in your vicinity. Okay, so you can go through, and if you start paying attention, you'll start wow, my emotion just changed. And then you realize, no, that was nothing that happened to me. Oh my gosh, I must be picking it up from somewhere else. And that's your heart brain talking to you. It talks through emotions. Okay. And so there was a horse I was working with the other day, and it was like, oh my gosh, I just got this huge, just sadness thing just out of nowhere. And I know Vicki Williams, who does braiding, horsehair braiding, and does beautiful jewelry with that. She's here tonight, and she says she'll pick up that information when she touches that hair from those horses. She'll pick up their emotional state. And those are ways that we start just paying attention and saying, wow, something changed. Was that me? Or did I receive information from one of my other brains? Okay. And so that was one of the things I just wanted to clarify, because that was a really good question. And I thought, oh, well, clearly I didn't explain that very well. So hopefully, as many times as I'm on here and maybe the same questions come up, and I'll try to explain them in slightly different ways each time, so that one of the times I explain it, it just clicks in your mind and you go, oh, God, why didn't you say that first? Right? And it's the same way with our writing instructors. And Deb knows this. She was a writing instructor for years, and she knows there's many ways you have to work with different students till it clicks for them. You can tell them one way for months or years, and they're like, oh, get it. And then finally you say it one slightly different way and they go, well, of course, right? And so we're all just doing the best we can out here, and I'm going to try to explain things in as many different ways as I can. And if you do my classes based on the book, you'll see that I explain things slightly different when I do the class than I did in the book. And the reason for that is that I want to have you think in a different way. And one of the ways that I do that, if you think through different words, one of the times I say it and it's slightly different, you'll go, oh, I finally understand what you were saying. Okay. So the same thing happens with our horses. If we can't explain it in one way, we think of another way to explain it to them. And so in my back pocket as a trainer, and Deb can say this too, you try something with one horse and it doesn't work. And then you go, well, let me see, I explained it different way to this other horse. Okay, that horse got it when I explained it that way. And so it's the same as with people. We just keep explaining to our horse till the light bulb goes off and they say, yeah, I understand finally. Okay. All right. So thank you very, very much, everyone, for coming tonight. And we kept it right about an hour, which is kind of perfect for me and for people listening. And I don't want to go so long that people go, oh, would you just stop talking? So thank you all.
Thanks, Susie.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye,
Thank
everybody. I'll see you
you.
next
Thank you
week.
very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.